All right, and I'll go ahead and start my presentation on federal R&D funding through SBIR and STTR, and I'll briefly discuss some other options as well, because we will have presentations on those, so no need to worry about the lack of content on the alternate options. So I will go ahead and just introduce myself real briefly. So my name is Ramya. I have been with the SBTDC for about 3 years now, working as a technology commercialization counselor. My background is primarily in biotech. I've done some consulting, little bit of marketing experience under my belt as well. And I almost co-founded my own biotech venture. That's quite a story for me to share at another time. But you could see I have both my bachelor's and master's in biotechnology. But the unique thing about the master's that I have is it combines a science MS or PhD with an MBA. So I got exposed to the business side as well. So anyway, so for today's objectives, we have 3 key things. There's a lot of information packed in this presentation. So if I go too fast, just please let me know. I'm trying to keep everything within half an hour. So I'll start off by giving a brief introduction to SBIR, STTR. I'll talk about what's probably the most important thing on today's agenda, the 2025 reauthorization, giving some updates on that. Spoiler alert, nothing's that different. And then I'll go through the review criteria if you want to move forward with SBIR or STTR funding. So I'll do a quick poll here. First, I'm going to ask how many of you would say you're very familiar with SBIR or STTR? Okay, wow, a lot of people in the room. How many would you say are somewhat familiar? Okay, small handful. And how many of you would say not familiar at all? Okay, so for those of you who are somewhat familiar or not familiar at all, that's what this presentation is for. Any questions that you have, feel free to ask me or those who are very familiar with the SBIR STTR program. So I'm going to give an introduction to the program and how we can take advantage of that. So the problem that we're trying to solve here is that a lot of innovation-driven businesses require funding for many different things, whether it's R&D, paying employee salaries, covering patents, legal costs, a lot of things like that. So that's kind of divided into the buckets that you see here on that slide. And you also have this overall timeline that you take when it comes to raising the funds you need for your business. So if you're in that pre-venture stage, you bootstrap, so raising money from friends and family. When you're starting up, you go transition into like the R&D grants and contracts, maybe join a few incubators and accelerator programs to get some small amounts of funds, say between like $5,000, $10,000 on average. Maybe start looking into angel investors and bridge loans to kind of, get your feet off the ground. And then when you're early stage, as we call it, you continue on your path through R&D grants and contracts if that's something you want to continue with. Maybe expanding your equity funding horizons a little bit more by talking to the big venture capitalists and maybe pursuing some loans as well at this time if that's something that you are comfortable with. So our focus is going to be on the R&D grants and contracts, as you already saw in my title slide. And that's where SBIR and STTR comes in. So for those of you who are not familiar with the acronyms that I'm using, SBIR stands for Small Business Innovation Research, and STTR stands for Small Business Technology Transfer. So these are non-dilutive federal funding mechanisms. So what that means is the funding that you get will not be at any equity cost to you. So the SBIR STTR agency will not take any equity of your company, no ownership of any kind. Small businesses are eligible to apply for this opportunity, and the goal is to really bring your R&D to the market, get a commercializable product from there, and they're really interested in products that have a significant market potential. So you want to make sure if you're going through this program, you do meet that criteria. So just a recap of what it means to be a small business. Of course, when you're applying for SBIR, STTR, you're the one who gets the award. You have to be for-profit and based in the United States, 51% owned by individuals. So there are some SBIR or STTR agencies that allow for you to have like some ownership from venture capitalists, just as long as that does not exceed 51%, that should be fine. That 51% just has to be owned primarily by you and other founders of the company. And small businesses, any business that's under 500 employees. So that should be easy considering a lot of SBIR, STTR applicants are roughly 5 to 10 employees in size. Little fun fact, for those who don't know, over half of the awards actually go to those small businesses that are less than 10 people. And we have roughly half of them that are first-time SBIR, STTR winners. So I already went through what the acronyms mean, but SBIR essentially funds a small business to do the R&D that is needed to bring their technology to market. And STTR kind of funds that partnership between a research institution like a university or a federal lab and your small business. So if you are looking to subcontract some work out to a university, have their help with your R&D, chances are you're probably going to go down the STTR path. So this is a page right out of our SBIR STTR 12-week guide, which is available on our website, free for you to use at any time. Just highlighted the key differences between SBIR and STTR. So you can see with subcontracting, SBIR has their own limits and STTR has different ones. So for SBIR, you can subcontract a maximum of 33% in phase 1, 50% in phase 2. STTR, you have that 40% minimum that the small business can do for R&D, 30% minimum of the R&D that your research institution can do. Another key factor in determining if you want to go SBI or STTR is where the PI is employed. So if they're primarily employed at the small business, chances are you're eligible for SBIR. If they're primarily employed at a research institution, most of the time it means STTR is the better path for you. So you can see SBIR is more funded compared to STTR. So you'll notice that there are like some agencies that do SBIR and STTR, and there are some that just do SBIR, and I'll be going through that later on in this presentation, but just wanted to give a heads up. All right, so SBIR and STTR offers grants and contracts. So the key takeaways here is that contracts are a lot more strict. The agency kind of has more say on what your R&D is going to be. They'll check up on you every now and then to see how you're doing, make sure you're hitting all your milestones. Whereas with grants, they're probably not going to be as strict. The PI is mainly in charge of how the R&D is going to go. And again, check-ins are not really required for that. Most of the time with these grants, you will submit a phase 1 report, just telling them what you did during phase 1. And then if you want to go into phase 2, you do apply after you submit that phase 1 report. So I talked about some agencies that participate in both SBIR and STTR, and some that only participate in SBIR. So you can see that list is right here. I'm not going to go through all the agencies, but this is just for your reference. So a tip here is that if you want to apply for SBIR or STTR, maybe even both, just don't judge the agency by its name. Even if you don't think there's a fit there, chances are there might be, as you look at past awards that have been given to companies and realize, hey, if they could get an award from DoD or NASA, for example, maybe I could too. So looking at the funding by agency, so I'm kind of focusing on these 4 because I call them the big 4. They're the most funded SBIR, STTR agencies. As you can see on the graph, DoD is quite large, and so is NIH. So we'd like to say that SBIR STTR is a three-phase program. So phase one is devoted to kind of developing the concept, bringing out your technology idea, maybe making some sort of MVP or prototype. You take about 6 to 12 months on phase one. Awards can range anywhere between $50,000 and $300,000. And the award rate is anywhere between 10 and 20%. So some of these funding amounts can be different depending on the agency and depending on, what their overall budget looks like for different types of projects, or even the size of the agency themselves. You can notice that USDA is a smaller agency. Their awards are typically going to be smaller than DoD or NSF or NIH. So phase two, that's when you start building out your prototype further. So that can take up to 2 years. You can see that the award is bigger and the award rate is also bigger because oftentimes there are phase one awardees in that applicant pool that are applying for phase two. So because the pool is smaller, your chances of getting that funding are slightly bigger. So this third phase, there is technically no further funding, but that's the point where we say, okay, you're ready to commercialize, you're ready to get your product right on the market. So if you are not familiar with these options, there are options like fast track and direct to phase two. So what fast track means is that you're submitting a phase one and phase two at the same time. Direct to phase two are offered by some SBIR, STTR agencies, specifically NIH, DoD, and Department of Education, if you're interested. And what direct to phase two allows you to do is, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're allowed to kind of skip through phase one if they determine that you don't need to spend time on the concept development. If you're already past that stage, you can apply to phase two funding just like that. So keep an eye out for those if you're interested in those opportunities. If you'd rather not go phase one followed by phase two, these are available to you as well. So a couple of facts about SBIR and STTR. You can see billions of dollars have been awarded. 70,000 plus awards have been given out. It's been helpful for employment and attracting equity investors. So definitely a great program. Also, an added bonus is, of course, it's non-dilutive. So they're not taking any equity from you. All right, so now I'll go through the step-by-step process of understanding the SBIR program and applying from there. So this is our outline for preparing your SBIR STTR proposal in 12 weeks. So again, adapted from our 12-week guide, which you can find on our website. Link is right there. So what that process looks like is that you're spending the first week of your proposal preparation just educating yourself. So understanding the differences between SBIR, STTR, understanding the differences between grants and contracts, doing what's called a past award search on SBIR.gov to really see which agencies could be a good fit for you. Then what you do from there is try to look into each agency that might be of interest to you, do a little bit of further research by going into their solicitations, other resources that can help you better understand, and getting connected with program managers by submitting some sort of pre-application or a one-pager. And then weeks 3 to 12 is spent on drafting the proposal itself. So what you do is that you spend some time just coming up with that first draft, share it with 3 to 4 objective reviewers, maybe send them a second draft as well so you can get any final thoughts. Go ahead and submit. Make sure you put your budget together as well, because that's very important. So this is how you do the past award search. So notice that I took a screenshot right out of SBIR.gov. So what you do here, and I'm going to zoom in, is, or before I zoom in actually, there is a unique feature where you can type in some keywords that are related to your business. So I like to use that. I think that's super helpful. And what you do is that you come up on a page that looks kind of like this. So you have like these 4 boxes that are down below. You have one box that tells you if it's SBIR or STTR, whether it's phase 1 or phase 2, when the award was given out, and who gave out the award. DHS in this case is Department of Homeland Security. This is a website that I like to recommend, America's Seed Fund. So the website is right there. We'll be sharing the slides after this event, so you can certainly review this on your own, click on the website, play around, and see what resources they have to offer. So in this particular case, we're looking at Department of Defense, which is a key SBIR STTR agency. So you can see it is mentioned on this list right above. So they offer a lot of different digestible materials for you, like one-pagers and pitch decks. And if you want to just take a look at the solicitation, you can access it through their website, which they list there as well. So now we go into testing the waters by submitting a pre-application or one-pager. This is where you start talking directly to an SBIR STTR program manager. So one way to do that is by submitting a project pitch if you're going through the National Science Foundation, or submitting a letter of intent if you're going through the Department of Energy. So more information on that can be found in the websites below. But typically, these are for program managers to really assess if you're a good fit within their program. For a project pitch, you draft a few paragraphs about the technology that you're working on, any technical challenges you expect to come across, how you're going to overcome them, talking about the market opportunity, your customers' pain points, and then just giving a brief description of who's on your team, how they can contribute to your phase 1 R&D. Letter of intent is a little bit simpler. For a project pitch, if you were to put that all on a Word document, it's probably like 2-3 pages. If you were to put everything on a letter of intent, that's less than 1 page. It's 500 words. So that is just a really quick description of what your R&D is going to be and what its potential impact could look like. So if you are not going through NSF or DOE, chances are you're going to be putting together some sort of one-pager that has these different paragraphs. So the first one kind of describing the problem that you're solving. How important is it? Who is it affecting? What current solutions are out there and why they're not effective? Then you go into your product description. So giving a few specific aims or R&D objectives. What do you plan on accomplishing during your R&D? How are you going to do that? When are you going to do that? And then your final paragraph talks about what do you expect to achieve in phase 1? What do you expect that commercial impact to really look like? And after you put all that together, you send it to your program manager. So this website, legacysbir.gov, that one has a list of agency contacts that you can reach out to. You can also find them on the corresponding SBIR or STTR agency's website. That's probably going to be a little bit more detailed. This SBIR.gov, their list is probably just like one person you can reach out to, and there could be multiple. So this is called a quad chart, for those of you who are not familiar. If you are going through the Department of Defense and you want to introduce your technology to them, you would do it in this form. So it's a lot simpler than a project pitch or aims page or letter of intent. You're just completing a few bullet points here, just giving an overview of your technology, if there's any IP behind it, where are you in technology development, value proposition, etc. So what we like to encourage is for you to have a multi-product submission strategy. So what that means is trying to have some sort of technology platform, looking into different products or applications for your technology, and then picking specific SBIR, STTR agencies that can correspond to them. So in this particular case, we have, this hypothetical platform that has been divided into 4 products, and this hypothetical person has identified all these different SBIR, STTR agencies that they can apply for. So the point of this is, 1, to increase your chances of getting SBIR or STTR funding, and 2, to make you look attractive to equity funding investors in the future. So oh yeah, you have a question back there?
Yeah, so go back to your previous slide there. Let's say you've submitted all 4 of those products. Once you are accepted for one award, you have to notify the rest of them and pull out, because you can't have multiple funding lines coming in to the same company, right?
Okay, so that's a good point. It's not that you can't have multiple SBIRs for the same company. However, that would be a problem if you submit the same exact proposal to multiple SBIR or STTR agencies. You'd have to make each proposal different from each other, have like a different product or application for your technology that can correspond to these different agencies. Did that make sense?
So I'm thinking back to the proposal submission, and it says on there, have you submitted any others? And if you did, you agree to notify them if you get an award, right?
Yes.
I believe that's part of it.
Yeah, that is a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, big topic of discussion, the current state of SBI or STTR. So, as many of you know, yesterday was a really big day because they were debating reauthorization of SBI or STTR. So, as I said before, there have been no real changes. What the government decided to do was just extend it for 1 more year, probably revisit it at this time. There's also what's called the innovation tax that was previously there, but they recently got rid of it. So if you want to learn more about how that was done, I included a link to the article where I ripped out that headline from. So with that being said, what could we expect for the future of SBI or STTR? So I'll just give a recap of what's been happening over the past few months. So a couple of changes have been proposed for the National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health. You can see roughly 50% less funding being there and their scientific priorities being narrowed down. So National Institutes of Health, for example, they have what I like to call many different sub-agencies. So there used to be 27 of them. Now they want to just consolidate them into 8. And National Science Foundation, they want to condense all their scientific priorities, which, to me are very broad. They want to just condense them into these 5. So if next year, if, these changes are implemented and you want to still apply for these, just keep in mind your proposals will have to be aligned to these areas. And another thing would be, given the political climate, there are certain things you can and cannot say in an SBIR proposal, unfortunately, that can get you flagged. So any mention of DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion, is probably going to get you flagged. Anything that does not align with the administration's priorities is probably not going to be selected for funding. So just keep that in mind. So these are smaller SBIR, STTR agencies. For now, we can assume they're safe, but by next year, if they continue to have under $100 million in R&D funding, they could potentially get cut. So we actually published an article a few months ago. I'm sure there have been some changes since we published that article, but if you want to read it, feel free to do that. Yeah.
So I just, in terms of flagging words, in addition to DEI, even using words like diversifying your market could get you flagged because they're using AI scanners and reviewing grants. So I just, in helping some of the clients I've worked with, really, it's not just what you're doing, it's the exact words you're using as well. And there are some references online about what words to avoid, because you may not think you're doing diversity, equity, inclusion, but when you're diversifying your markets, that word diversify could be a trigger or a flag. So I just suggesting that because I think it's more than just what you're covering. It's literally the words. So
Exactly, yeah. Just be very, very careful about how you word things. Yeah.
I have another question. So you talked about the reduction in funding. Is it applicable after 26 September 2026, or is it applicable now?
That is an excellent question. So because as of now, they're kind of keeping things the same, my gut feeling is to think that this probably might happen next year, but you never really know. This could happen maybe even sooner.
You see, they did a 1-year extension as is, but some of the Republicans were proposing some pretty radical changes to the SBIR program, which I assume will get revisited in a year. Do you have any insight? I mean, some of those like companies can't have more than 75 in a lifetime.
Yes. So you're referring to the Innovative Act or
Right.
Innovate Act.
Any insight on that? I mean, what's going to be the impact if they do make those changes? All I knew that they were considering them, but I don't really understand what the impact is going to be.
That is, yeah, that's a great question. That's something all of us are trying to figure out every single day with, the current federal landscape right now. But you're right. Like, it does seem like they're kind of just like delaying their decision and whether to enact the Reauthorization Act or the Innovate Act. But things that I like about the Reauthorization Act, for example, it's having the commercialization officer. So that could be something that we could see by next year. Of course, like that point with foreign due diligence, I feel like they've been doing that for months now. They've been very careful about who you collaborate with. They have like a list of countries that you cannot have any sort of association with. So that's something that needs to be on your minds as you're applying for SBIR, STTR. Innovate Act, I understand the need for, putting limits on how much SBI or STTR funding you can get, because, there are a lot of what we call SBIR mills that just go through the phase 1, the phase 2 funding. They don't really reach commercialization. They're just highly dependent on that. So I think that's their way of saying, okay, don't just keep getting these awards and not do anything with it. We want you to put it out into market and we want you to start making revenue. So, like there are things that I agree and disagree with in each of these acts. I don't know, like, if these could possibly change, they might, between now and September 30th of next year, they might propose more changes. It kind of seems like things are very unpredictable right now, but either one of these could be signed into law, and there are benefits and drawbacks to each, and we just have to, keep moving as much as we can. So, okay, any other questions? I know this is a hot topic, so I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability. Yeah.
Due diligence concept there. So does that mean you can't work with like a foreign country, a specific one, pick one, or is there you can't, they can't be your customer?
That's a great question. So I actually was talking to a few students about the same topic, and what I heard was there was one SBIR funded company that received VC funding from someone in China or Vietnam, one of those East Asian countries, but their SBIR funding was pulled. So what I got from that was, okay, like any association that you have with a foreign country is probably going to be really examined, whether you're getting customers or whether you're getting funding from them, whether you're collaborating on R&D, they're going to really look at that. Any other questions? We have 5 minutes left, so what I'll do is I'm just gonna skip ahead on how to write a competitive proposal. So excuse me if I'm moving a little too fast. But there are 5 review criteria here for SBIR, STTR. So significance, innovation, approach, team, and environment. So significance, just talking about the pain points that you're addressing, how important is the problem you're solving, who it affects, the problem that you're solving, who does it affect, and is there a substantial market opportunity for you? Innovation, so you want it to be novel and untested. You don't want some sort of incremental change to something that has already been around. You want something that is better, faster, or cheaper than what's already out there. You want the potential to generate IP, or ideally something that's already been patented. And of course, you want to understand your competition and how you can be better than them. So approach, making sure you have a very clearly defined research plan. What are you going to do? When are you going to do it? How long is it going to take? If there are any challenges that you anticipate, how do you overcome them? And then your investigators and team, you want to make sure that you have a mix of technical and business development experience. So whether that's with R&D, accounting, any external advisors, or legal issues, you want to make sure that you have people who can help you out with that. And then your environment, you want to make sure that you not only have the right people, but you have the right facilities and equipment to carry out R&D. So there are additional slides here because we're running out of time. Just make sure the key point in this budget slide, make sure you request a 7% profit on your SBIR or STTR because that can be used for anything that's commercialization related. And make sure that you understand who reviews your proposal. That's a mix of academic and business development professionals. There are resources like TABA that can be used after you submit an SBIR or after you receive an SBIR. Always request that because your SBIR or STTR agency will ask if you want to be considered for that. And for the icing on the cake, we have the One North Carolina Small Business Program. So Chris Schmidt from this program will be here to talk about this. So she'll discuss the incentive and the match program, but the key highlights are here. The incentive program is to reimburse you for proposal preparation, and the match program is to give you some additional funding with your phase 1 award. So there are other funding avenues that you can consider. So we have our friends at NC Innovation, NC Idea, and NC Biotech to talk about them further. We'll also be talking about small business loans. There are also some grant opportunities you can take advantage of. So a couple of websites are up there. And yeah, just stay tuned for our equity funding presentations and presentations from our ecosystem partners. But to very quickly summarize the slide, because we are very short on time, just do your homework on SBIR or STTR. Make sure you leverage TABA and the One North Carolina program and keep on top of your news. So thank you for your time.